Welcome to this meeting of this new Scrutiny Committee, looking at corporate performance and budget matters. I'm Councillor Will Adams and I'm Chair of the committee. We have committee members in the Civic Centre along with officer support. The meeting is being live streamed via YouTube and will be available on the Council's website. Some housekeeping for those in the Civic Centre. We don't have any fire drills planned, and if the alarm does go off, please leave by the emergency exits at the back of the room and congregate on the car park. Could I also please ask members and anyone else in the room to turn mobile phones off and switch your microphones off when not speaking, please. For those joining us via Microsoft Teams, please remain muted and indicate at the appropriate time when you would like to speak, and I will bring you in. Just a couple of comments from me as chair before we go on to the agenda. We have met as a committee before this meeting and we've agreed that we will be an independently minded, strong and effective scrutiny committee, leaving politics at the door. This committee runs by consensus with formal votes only taken where it is required. We do want, as a committee, to foster a positive relationship with the Cabinet and the officer team, as well as any partners being a critical friend, but also the eyes and ears of our residents. We will work in an inclusive, evidence-based, objective and strategic way to support and benefit our communities. We will now move on to the agenda. Apologies for absence.
None, Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations? Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. I probably don't, but just for completeness, can I declare that I'm a member of the Town Deal Board and the County Council? There might be references contained within this agenda to that, just in case. Thank you.
Thank you, and they're noted. So we'll bring you to agenda item 3. Quarter 4 performance monitoring report 22-23. I would like to welcome the leader of the council, Councillor Foster, who will present this item, supported by the Director of Change and Delivery, Vicky Willett. Welcome to you both. And would you like to present? Thank you.
Thanks, Chair, and congratulations on being appointed as by council of the chair of this committee. We as the executive feel this is an exceptionally important part of the scrutiny and governance process of the authority, and we look forward to working with you over the next 4 years, because any scrutiny can only help the performance and help our residents to live a better life, Chair. So congratulations to you and all the committee members. If I may, I have to take my glasses off now because I struggle. The quarter 4 performance monitoring report, Chair, is in front of you, and it's a look back to the last quarter of the previous administration, January to March 2022-23. There's a lot of information within the report, Chair. I'll just highlight a couple of issues because it's more important I'm here to be questioned and challenged. So on the thriving communities, there's the achievements listed there, or what the key performance of these key projects. All 4 are rated green. On the key performance indicators, 2 are performing either on target or better, and there was 1 that was reporting worse than target outside its threshold, which was the issues surrounding the credit union uptake. And I think it's fair to say that the cost of living crisis that our residents are currently deeply involved with is had an impact on the credit union. But what we've done, Chair, we've detailed there what our action plan is to get the credit union performing nearer to the position that we would like to see it performing, and we can clearly take any questions later. Moving on to the exemplary council, again, all 3 projects are rated green, Chair, and all are performing on or better than target. In respect to a fair local economy that works for everyone, 2 of the projects are rated green. However, 1 is rated amber, and that's the Town Deal programme, where it's such a big scheme for this council and for this community, £38 million. What we're doing with the town board and with the government is we're just slightly realigning the procurement processes and the programme to ensure that that's delivered within budget and to the timescales that we have agreed with the government for rollout in the coming years. There's one of the key KPIs is worse than target, which is the median earnings by residents. Clearly, this is one of those KPIs we have no direct influence on necessarily, because a lot of the median earnings are dictated by the economy and by the government, but we keep a close eye on that, particularly where it's impacting certain areas of our community, Chair, to see if there is any interventions that we are required to undertake. And again, we can discuss that later if you wish. And finally, good homes, green spaces and healthy spaces. 2 projects are rated green. One is amber. The amber one is Jubilee Gardens next door. We're all acutely aware, because we've reported it previously, that the inflationary pressures, particularly in construction, where costs were going upwards of 20 to 40%, have meant we've had to undertake a review of the design. We've undertaken a review of the key output. But what I can report to you, Chair, is we're hoping to bring a paper to Cabinet and Council in June and July. And we're hoping to see a start on site of that project by late summer. Other than that, Chair, there's a list of other key organisation performance measures. I don't intend to go through them, Chair, but we're now happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for your introductions. I'll start the questions off then. This report measures progress against the corporate strategy refreshed last November. Following the elections, what are your plans with regards to the corporate strategy moving forward?
Thanks, Chair. So we have already started the process of reviewing the corporate strategy and the key priorities for the council, as you'd expect for a new administration. And the world is a fastly evolving place, month to month, week to week. So we've started that with the Cabinet and key officers. We're then taking it into the Labour group in the next week. In fact, I think it's this week. I think it's this Wednesday, where the Labour group will go look at the priorities. We're going to look at the manifesto that we delivered that was supported wholly by our community in every area of the borough. And then we're looking in September, Chair, to bring a brand new corporate strategy to council for adoption.
Thank you. Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask just on the Music in the Park event. So first off, I just wanted to ask, what is the measure of success that you're using for the event?
Thanks, Councillor King, and welcome to the authority. What we're trying to do there is ultimately make it cost neutral to the local authority as it evolves. And there's many strands that we're looking, because we also want it to benefit the local community. And the businesses, because it brings, and we'll be bringing a report to council in the next few weeks on the last Music in the Park, which saw an uptake of about 33% increase in the number of people that attended. It was really, really good for South Ribble. The number of comments we've had back from the local businesses that's seen hundreds of thousands of pounds of additional business through their coffers over that weekend is just tremendous. So we look at the added value to the economy. We do look at the social value as well, because there was 3,500 people from South Ribble at that function on that Sunday, and it made people happy, Will. And, I know sometimes it's difficult to put a monetary fund to that, but when people are in challenging circumstances and they're happy and enjoying themselves, that's part of our role as a local authority. So ultimately, to make it that there's no investment required, direct investment required from the authority, continue to look at how it's supporting our local businesses, which are critical, particularly after post-COVID, but also monitoring in detail the feedback from the local community and seeing, and the value that adds to what is a challenging economy at the moment and challenging times.
So are the council likely to see any numbers on return on investment, and when is it that we're likely to see that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of the process, we're evaluating that now. So we'll get all I can never remember the exact technical term, but it's the added value to the gross added value to the local economy. We've got all the details of where the tickets were purchased from. There's a vast array of information that we're going to bring to council. Well, that should be before the end of the summer.
And just final point on this, even though it is in the next reporting period, How did the event go, and what are the future plans for it?
I'm glad you've asked this. I thought the event went really, really well. And I can't believe that Councillor Howarth wasn't there with bad manners there as well. So we went very, very down very, very well. Look, it was an overwhelming success this year. As I say, the biggest mark for us is when you look at the number of tickets that you sell. And as I say, we sold over 1,000 tickets more. And all the feedback we've had has been overwhelmingly positive. And so we want to look to continue it. And, you know, many people said that they love the fact that they normally have to travel and pay a lot of money to go and see these acts. And these acts are now coming into South Ribble. And so it's something we do want to develop further. We're using our assets, and you don't know, we might be able to take it further afield because we've got the parks in Penwitham, the parks in Bamber Bridge and everywhere else that can facilitate, maybe not to the same scale, but this is about our investing in our community, Will.
Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, my current condition, I could probably provided the hip hop for you, but page 5, paragraph 17, social prescribing service. What have the outcomes of the recruitment mentioned been, and is the launch date of July 2023 still realistic and achievable?
Chair, if it's okay, I'll ask. It's probably best that Victoria answers this question, if that's okay.
Thank you. So yes, the recruitment for the key roles is now completed, and we've recruited to the senior role this week. So we will have a team fully in place and ready to start. So the team will join from July, and then the senior will join slightly after that. But from there, we should see a fully formed team who will be able to start taking referrals, and that will build on kind of the existing provisions. So part of this is about building our connections into wider wellbeing services and into the primary care networks as well. So once we've got that in place, they'll be able to start taking referrals, and we should see benefits from that pretty quickly because the team are out there in the community. That's their purpose. They shouldn't be sitting behind desks. They're very much a team who will be out seeing people and offering support.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening. Just referring to page 6, paragraph 19, the cost of living crisis. There's an action plan mentioned, and how is the action plan monitored and the progress assessed, and are there any statistics available to the effectiveness and to the support the council's put in place?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Williams, and welcome to the committee. And this was something that was of critical importance because as inflation is dropping off slightly, the headline rates, but it's still at 8%, there's this misperception that the cost of living crisis has gone away, and it hasn't, because costs are still 20% higher than they were 18 months ago. It's just the rate of increase that's changing. We need to see negative inflation for costs to start coming down. So our communities are still ravaged by this cost of living crisis, and we all know that as local councillors. So the former deputy leader, Councillor Mick Titherington, chaired this, and we put this action plan in place. And it's now key as part of the new corporate strategy work that we're looking at to see how effective it has been. But what I can tell you, Hayden, is that there's been far more demand on the services that we put forward as part of that plan than we had availability of resources. And so that's why we're continually looking to bring in key stakeholders and partners. You know, that you might come onto this later, but particularly debt is a real problem. And so we worked closely with the CAB that's upstairs in the building here, and some of the statistics that they're coming forward with at the moment for the level of debt that consumers are just finding themselves in because of this cost of living crisis. And then with the double whammy is that the mortgage rates are increasing as well. And then the other thing that we're finding is you recall the government's Help to Buy scheme, where a lot of new homes were bought with this 5-year with the deposit paid over 5 years at a very, very low rate of interest. That's now coming to fruition because the householders now has to service that debt themselves at increasingly high mortgage rates, and it's impossible for some of them to do so. So we need to look as part of our corporate planning process, particularly with the cost of living crisis, because without wanting to preempt anything, Chair, I think cost of living is going to be an issue that's front and centre of the corporate strategy that we're going to deliver. We need to do something to intervene more. So we will see you, Hayden. You'll see all these statistics when we go through, and we'll most certainly we can write to the committee, Vicky, and we can give you some statistics and the data as we has it now, if that would help.
Yeah, I think that would be really useful. It's an ongoing problem. I'm sure we're going to refer to it later on in some other questions that we've got. So, yeah, if we can provide some statistics, that would be fantastic.
Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Good evening. And could I take you to page 7, paragraph 24, please? Where there's a reference to digital skills training. Please, could you talk us through why we are unable to report on this indicator?
Yep, so in terms of the digital skills training, that's something that we're putting a process in place to be able to measure. So during the period of COVID, it wasn't as active and we weren't able to do the same level of outreach. So the team have been building back up the digital outreach provision, looking at where it can fit best, which avenues perform the best, where we can target resources. And then now, as part of the new corporate strategy, the measure will capture the new process that is in place. So we should be able to report that one from the next quarter.
Thank you. And what arrangements had actually been put in place with partners when the indicator was being developed?
So typically for our digital skills work, we work with some of the Lancashire adult learning and wider colleges. So as part of the provision, they will sign up to an agreement with us for the number of sessions that they'll provide. So as we kind of look at which avenues we're going to use and develop, we'll be able to ask them to commit to a certain level of sessions, which are the ones that we'll use to then report on this metric.
So let's come in there, Chair, if that's good. So just so the committee is clear that there's an awful lot of digital training that's taken place. It's just that we'd rather not report an inaccurate figure. We'd rather say to you that we haven't got the accurate data and come back to you with the accurate data. I don't want you to think that there's not a raft of different digital training courses taking place. There's a multitude of them that have taken place. It's just we haven't got, for a number of reasons, the live accurate data, and I'd rather state that than provide you with something that wasn't true.
Okay, thank you. I think we would, as a committee, support that as well. So we look forward to seeing those figures. I'll just take you to page 8 and 9. So the number of new savers with the credit union. Scrutiny has previously made a number of recommendations around raising the profile of the credit union and encouraging outreach to communities away from Leyland. Why has there been a delay in implementing our recommendations and improving this indicator?
Good question, Chair. What I can tell you is, again, we'd rather do something properly first time, and we need to, the credit union themselves, as you know, are established in Leyland round the corner, and it has been a challenging period for them, particularly with the cost of living crisis. So again, we'd rather take a slight step back so that we can take 3 or 4 forward quickly. So again, the cabinet member responsible for this is already in dialogue with the community hub chairs, because we think the best and simplest and most effective way to get the credit union out and about into our communities is via the hubs. And so we're already on with doing that, and hopefully next time we're sat here, you'll see that we've made some significant progress with that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Just on the same subject, if I may. So the opening hours are somewhat limited. So I think the office is open for 4.5 hours on 4 days of the week and 3 hours on the Wednesday. Do you think that these limited opening hours will have some impact on the accessibility and success of the credit union?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Green. I think it's inevitable that that's true. If there's nobody there to meet the customers, then it's going to have an impact. But this is the dilemma we have. But we're in a stronger the credit union's in a stronger financial position now, as it states in the report. So we need to look as part of the plan to supplement the staff. now, because if you remember, the council was funding this and underwriting this for the first couple of years, but now it's becoming self-sustainable, then we'll be looking to work with the credit union to increase those hours, because it's, as you say, with using some of the surpluses that they're naturally creating, can pay for additional staff.
Thank you. And could I ask you how other council services actually link with the work of the credit union, and which services in particular link with it?
There's a number of them, and then I'll let Vicky go through them in detail in a second. But it's about intervention, Councillor Green. So it's when they go, we have hundreds of requests for support every single month. So one of the areas, rather than send them to the citizens' advice, we might send them to the credit union. But likewise, the credit union also sends the customers to us as well for additional support, whether it be in housing allowance, whether it be in council tax support, whether it be citizens' advice, whether it be debt advice. There's a number of interventions. So we work, to be fair, I think that nearly every element of the council's function is somehow, when people are in distress and need support, there's a multitude of services. So I think, Councillor Green, rather than point out just one or two, I think you can make the assumption that it's across the bandwidth of nearly everything that we look to do in the council.
What financial and in-kind contribution do we make to the credit union as a council, and how do we ensure value for money to make sure that they deliver our expectations?
So we'll have to write to your chair with the exact numbers, because I haven't got them on the top of my head. The council made the decision about 2 years ago that we would support the credit union for a number of years until it became self-sufficient, but we'll write to you with the exact numbers. And as you see, though, very positively, though, even though we haven't quite met, or the credit union hasn't met its KPIs for its targets of customers, it is self-sufficient now. It is, and it's made a surplus. So that's very, very positive. But we'll write to the exact numbers, because clearly, once it is self-sufficient, then the council wouldn't and shouldn't be subsidising it anymore. So I think we're in a positive position, but we will write to you with the exact figures of where we're up to.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to seeing that. Councillor Peat.
Yep, page 11, paragraph 36, the Business Energy Efficiency Scheme. I was really excited to read about this scheme, actually, but I was interested that out of 90 applications have been received, only 2 grants been granted. So I just wondered why this is and what more can we do?
So again, if I don't cover anything off, Chair, Vicky will support me here. So this is a relatively new, Councillor Peat, intervention that Councillor Flannery brought through Cabinet at the end of the last administration. And I do think it could be an issue of timing, because of the due diligence that we need to undertake with any grants that we award. When the application comes in, there's 9 times out, it's inevitable that you need and you require more information from the businesses to support their applications. And if you remember, this is just a snapshot in time. So we will take away and find out and get you the additional information that you're asking for. But again, the criteria is set as well. So it could be a lot of the applications that were coming in didn't meet the criteria. Now, I know for a fact this is something that's very close to Councillor Flannery's heart, that if the criteria was proving to be getting in the way of us awarding grants, then he would bring to council, would look to change the policy if that was appropriate. So I do think this is an issue of timing, because as I say, it was only approved at Cabinet back in December, was it? And
yeah, I think the reason is that as well as the issue of timing, which is right, we've had an influx. The part of the processes that we complete an energy audit for that business. And that's really important, because that then gives a wider assessment of not just the things that the grant can support, but also where they may be able to access more significant or substantial funding, whether it's a small thing that would make a big difference or whether it's a bigger change that they need to make for the longer term. So that energy audit aspect is really important. And obviously the timing factor is that we'll get an application, the audit then happens, and then the grant's awarded. So it is just as they move through that process. I think at this point probably we'd had a number through the audit process and then 2 grants awarded, and we'll be I can get the exact figures for you now, but we'll be a further way through, I would imagine. But that audit element is really important.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. Page 12, paragraph 41, talking about developing town centres and that KPI. Can you talk us through why it's been rated as amber rather than the red, with it appearing to be off track? As I say, it's quite a big deal there. It's one of the biggest things we've got coming up in the next year or two. Can you expand on what's been done to bring it back on track?
Yes. So, thanks, Councillor Williams. This is always slightly subjective. Whether it's red or amber, but we don't believe it is red. This is a 3-4 year programme of works, and as far as we're concerned, we're still programmed to deliver the town deal as per the agreement that we have with His Majesty's government, and that's critical. We have to deliver it within that time frame. What we've done is we're looking at there's been some tweaks, as you'd expect, through further consultation with the businesses on Huff Lane, because what we've got to ensure happens is that any disruption to the businesses is minimal. And so we're working through that, and that means that we're slightly changing the timing and the sequencing potentially of some of the phasing. We're looking at the procurement as well, because if you remember, council has historically approved the procurement to be done in 3 or 4 separate packages. Given the scale of this deal and given the risk that we want to de-risk any construction risk to the council, the view is that it's potentially better to deliver as one main contract through all the schemes. And so we're just slightly tweaking, therefore, the procurement strategy. And again, if we do look to do that, that has to come back heading to council for approval as well. And it's, we've had a challenge because of the inflationary. We've been looking at the town deal now for about 3 years, I think, from when we put our initial bid in. And then from when we put the original business case and bid in, as I mentioned before about Jubilee Gardens, inflation has spiked, and particularly construction inflation. So what we need to make sure is that we've got this contracted properly. And finally, we are also, again, listening to our local communities. We're looking to tweak some of the planning permissions we have slightly as well, so that when we do start in the summer in earnest, and we've already started, we've already got Idens bought, the demolition has commenced, we're ripping out all the asbestos, so it's absolutely riddled in the place. So it isn't that we haven't started, we have started, and what we've done is brought a specialist team of independent consultants on board to make sure that we deliver the maximum value of project within the parameters that we've agreed with government, but also to make sure that we still hit the programme targets.
Thank you. Just to expand on that slightly, so what's the impact of actually the intended proposal was going to be for smaller contracts, but now it's larger ones? Is that slowing things down, or are you going to get better benefits out of that, better economy of scale, that type of thing?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. It's the latter, isn't it? Because but they've also got to meet our social value policy as well. Any larger contractor, as well as any of the smaller contractors that we look at in construction. As you know, it's my day job, project delivery. The challenge you have with smaller elements contracted separately is there's always that small grey area between the two different contracts, and it provides a level of risk that you're not always necessarily comfortable with. But then when you're looking at the costings of the scheme, the economies of scale are such that if you did award a bigger contractor, you'd expect a better deal, wouldn't you? And again, that's all we're looking through. We've got a multitude of frameworks available to us. There's a multitude of options, and I say we're in dialogue with government, and we're almost at that point on dialogue with our local community where we're ready to really kickstart on with awarding these contracts.
Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just bring your attention to page 14, paragraph 46, just on the council housings at the former Mackenzie Arms site. As these are council houses, why are they being managed by Progress Homes rather than the council?
Thanks, Councillor King. I was at the facility on Friday. They're complete now, Chair, you'll be glad to know, and they are absolutely wonderful. I have got no doubts that they're the best quality, best spatially council houses in the north of England by far. And I'd urge all the committee to go down and look at them. They're absolutely wonderful. And if I told you that we had, for the small number of properties, we had over 4,000 applications, just shows you the demand in our community. Now, in direct answer to your question, at the moment the council doesn't have its own commercial team to manage this facility, so we've gone into a short-term deal with Progress Housing, who do this day in, day out. And the strategy is, as soon as Jubilee Gardens comes on board and the other facilities that we're building in the business hubs and the other bits and bobs that we're building in Leyland and other areas, for example, the Penwith Master Plan, etc., then our internal team is going to develop at the same time. So basically, it's just a short-term deal with Progress to manage the properties until such point we have our own established team.
What are we referring to as short term? Is there an end date on this?
I think we've got a 2-year break. So, and I would imagine that Jubilee Gardens will be ready for occupancy in approximately 2 years. So that's why we've agreed that. But I must point out though as well that I've just seen the revised budget figures for Mackenzie Arms, and the council's still going to be, even though we're paying the management, they're paying Progress to undertake the management for us, the council will still see an annual surplus on that development. So although, which is good news, not only are we investing in our community, building council homes, but the rents are such, and it's the proper, true, affordable, rented figure that we're charging the local community. The council taxpayer here, who hasn't contributed a penny towards that development, it's all been paid through by grant funding and developers with Section 106 agreements. The council still sees a surplus annually.
So you've mentioned a 2-year break. Will the council within those 2 years retain the rents received from the properties? And if so, will the income be reinvested into building more homes?
That's the plan, Will. And so the answer is yes. We do. Basically, the surplus comes into the team. Out of the rents, we pay the management charge, and then there's still a surplus on top of that. And then that's, you sort of second guessing, I think, the new corporate strategy from my Labour colleagues is building council homes is a key priority for us. So this enables us to do more.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much. I'd like to refer to page 15, paragraph 51, Jubilee Gardens. Probably the same question as Leyland Town deal. Obviously, with inflationary pressures and things like that, again, this one's been rated as amber rather than red. Obviously, there's inflationary pressures and all that now. And have we got contingencies in place because of the funding in place and contingencies for it?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Williams. So yes, there are contingencies in place built into the financial model. I'm hopeful that we can, as I mentioned earlier, that we're at the point where we can council can award the contract in the summer and commence. Please remember as well, and I can't remember the exact figures, it's like 8 million of Homes England. It's a substantial sum that Homes England are also contributing towards the scheme as well. And so we've worked hard on this tirelessly for the last 3 or 4 months to get us to the position where it's supported and there's a surplus and it's deliverable for our community. But again, it's like I mentioned earlier, I want to bring it to council when it's properly ready, and so that it passes all due diligence, because one of the queries that was raised by the design team over the past 3 or 4 months to reduce cost, because when you've got inflationary pressures, one of the options is to reduce cost, isn't it? Well, the options for reducing costs were value engineering out heat pumps, which is something this council will not support. It's got to be green, it's got to be carbon neutral, carbon zero. So that we're not looking at that. But also the other options then, is that we reduce the specification and the standards of the building, and we won't agree to do that either, because people deserve to live in high quality, energy efficient homes, and so we're at this position now where we've worked through tirelessly with the contractors and the design team, where we now have a proposal where we're actually going to slightly increase. If you've been monitoring the planning portal, we've submitted a Section 73 non-material amendment, so we're going to slightly increase the number of units by 3 or 4, and that then helps the budget, the modelling, the financial modelling, because it's slightly more revenue that comes in, but not a great deal of extra additional capital costs. So we're almost there.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that hopefully in August at Planning Committee. Obviously, this project is around delivering affordable quality homes, and obviously Jubilee Gardens goes a massive way to having that in the borough, and also the affordable homes at other sites on this part of the town deal. So, what future strategy have we got to provide even more quality and affordable homes in the borough?
So you'll remember, Hayden, since you delivered a lot of the leaflets, that within our manifesto, this is something our community demanded from us, that we need. There's, as I said, 4,000 applicants for about 16 properties in Bamber Bridge is phenomenal. Is just phenomenal. There's a chronic shortage of housing, and there's also a chronic shortage of available land within the central spike of South Ribble as well. So as part of the corporate planning process for the new corporate strategy, this is clearly going to be identified, and we're already looking at other alternative available sites where we can go in and build homes for our community, because it is affordable. It is affordable. And I've had plenty of debates, she was saying, council chair, about you could build more houses on Mackenzie Arms site. Yeah, it could, but the young families and workers that want to live in there deserve to have a good quality, spacious house, because that adds into their health and well-being as well. So it's going to be within the corporate strategy, Hayden, as a priority that we're looking to deliver to council in September.
Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to bring your attention to page 16, paragraph 55 on the prevention of homelessness, which I'm sure we'll all agree is of utmost importance, and wish you all the best on it. But please, could you talk us through what your definition is for this indicator, and what is the council going to do to prevent homelessness?
So could you say that last bit again, Will? Sorry.
So could you talk us through the definition of this indicator and what the council does to prevent homelessness?
So I'll ask Vicky to give you, if you want, the textbook answer to this, but we have a number of individuals and families that present themselves as homeless. And as you can say, just purely in the 1 quarter of that we're reporting on here, it was 181. And it's phenomenal. And it is, I know I mentioned him before, Councillor Mick Titherington, the former deputy leader. This is something he was tirelessly trying to fight, because the government don't provide us the financial support. They give us a very short period, and then they expect us to stop. And we've made a decision as a cabinet in the last administration that we would continue to financially support the homeless. You can't just ignore people and families when they turn up as homeless. And as I mentioned to you before, about particularly it's not what you would expect a homeless person to be, if without stereotyping it. It's families who have been evicted, and it's really, really bad. And I know there's a paper going to the cabinet meeting in July, where the cabinet's going to be looking to consider to continue this financial support and this financial arrangement, because we can't just leave these people behind. And it's when they turn up here and we work with them, we've got all our key stakeholders. Our first job is to get them into temporary accommodation. We have to get them into temporary accommodation, work through the options, and there's a multitude of different options that we can work through with them, with family, with temporary homes, with the likes of Progress Housing, but we need to get them out of the temporary accommodation as quickly as we can. But fundamentally, my desire would be that we had enough available social housing, council housing, whatever, that we could then house these people, these critically important members of our community. It is a problem. Well, it is a ever evolving problem, and we keep a close eye on the stats, and the stats are getting worse and worse. And as I say, we keep on at government and on and on and on to give us more financial support to support these people. But unfortunately, it's the council taxpayer in South Ribble that currently cops it. But that's a decision of the administration. That's a political decision. We're not allowing these people to go without the support that they need.
You've referred to an action plan in the report. What does the action plan refer to include, and how is it monitored?
Yeah, so in terms of the action plan, obviously under the duty of that we have as a council, if somebody is threatened with homelessness in 56 days, then we have to develop an action plan to support them. If somebody attends to us and they are already homeless, then we have to identify suitable accommodation for them. And then in terms of our action plan for being able to alleviate some of those pressures, we have a range of measures in place. So it includes both preventative elements like mediation support for families, support for young people to encourage them to return to their family or to be able to improve those relationships so that they don't become homeless. But then we also obviously have a range of measures to support people into accommodation and then out of accommodation through providing them with assistance to identify other options as quickly as possible. So we have a number of specific actions, and there is some additional funding from the government at the moment to be able to enhance some of that provision, albeit it's not a significant, it's not a substantial amount. It won't be enough, but it will help to reinforce some of the provision that we've got in place.
It's a really important question you've asked here, Will, because it is one of the key challenges that the community faces at the moment. And the added challenge that we have isn't just a financial one. It's the availability of short-term accommodation as well. So we know in South Ribble there's not that many hotels available now. The Home Office own and run the Leyland Hotel. So there's circa 180 beds out of use, although it's not fully used at the moment. And the last thing that we want to do is send these people out of area as well, away from the friends and family. But it's a challenge that we face. So again, it has to be a priority. We need to build more homes. If we had more affordable homes available to our community, we would see an impact. But the problem is, as you know, it's not a quick fix. It's going to take at least 12, 18, 24 months to get more houses built where we need them built.
My final point on this is just, do you have a timescale for the full service review, and will the futurely quarterly reports include an update on the review and a report on the outcomes?
Yeah, so I think I did mention earlier, Chair, that we're intending, there's 2 cabinet meetings in July, and I can't remember, there's one next week and then there's one early July. And I do understand, I think the homelessness strategy is on the second one, where we're basically, it's that chronic, we're bringing in it every 6 months at the moment. It's come to cabinet, so we can keep reviewing it, make sure that it's right and proper, and that we understand the financial commitment the council's making as well. So in the next 2 or 3 weeks, you'll see it at cabinet. Councillor Peat.
Same topic. I was just reading through the select move process, and there's several qualifying indicators. One based on residency, one on work. If you live in one area or you have family in one area, but your work is in another area, because you're right, there's no stereotyping. A lot of people who are homeless do still work, and the cost of living crisis is just going to make things worse and worse. I think we need to be more prepared, to be more flexible. I noticed you can only apply for one area at a time, but everybody's circumstances are slightly different. So I just wondered why that is the rule, and could there be flexibility on that for someone to apply for 2 areas at once, say South Ribble and Chorley at the same time? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor P. Again, a really good question, and I think that the policy has only just recently been updated as well through council. It's not just the council's select move policy, it's also all our RPs as well are signed up to it locally. Unfortunately, a lot of this is dictated by statute as well, and so it's a real challenge for us. What I can say to you is, wherever possible, we do try to meet the needs of the people, the community. We desperately do. Always, everybody is as flexible as they possibly can be, but the whole, you look at it, unless you're at absolute top priority, you don't stand a chance of getting a property there. In that, there's that few of them, and but again, we'll take on board what you say. We will look at that, and we'll get some information to you, because the bandings are very prescriptive as well, aren't they? But unfortunately, most individuals fall into CRD most of the times, and there's not even enough properties to furnish Band A. But we of course we'll look at it and we'll get any additional information across to you.
Yeah, thanks for that. I just thought it might help house people a bit more quickly. Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Apologise now about the next bit about contact centres is my specialist subject as I do this as a trade. References made on page 18, paragraph 59 to Q4 been an extremely busy period with reasons be such as been garden waste, council tax, billing and elections, and obviously these occur every year. So have we therefore got a call forecast by week of the number of calls that we expect to get in, how many people are required to answer those calls, and a full plan of what service level and abandon level we expect to achieve each week?
I'd like to say yes, and yes, but so in all seriousness, Hayden, we have all the historic data going back year after year after year, yeah, and that's analysed consistently. I know the cabinet member responsible gets a weekly update on this, but it is getting much better. The whole system is becoming far more fluid. It is much better, but also remember the issue, and we've discussed this before. Personally, I mean, the issue that they call abandoned rate being the key KPI. We're taking that away, because when you ring the authority, one of the first things that you're encouraged to do when you ring, the lady on the phone says, please abandon, she doesn't say abandon the call, but please understand that X, Y, and Z services are available digitally online. And if you wish, you go and use also. There's a high volume of abandoned calls because residents then go and use the online facilities that we're directing them to. So it's not the greatest KPI. Where we're looking to change that, it's about two factors for us: the length of time individuals are waiting that want to speak to a member of staff, how long they're actually having to wait to have their call answered. But then we're also looking at the KPI of performance, and have we managed to deal with the issue promptly, and is our customer it's satisfied with the service they received? And that's how we're moving forward with it. So yeah, the answer is yes, we do analyse this on a month by month basis, and we've made errors in the past, you know, when particularly through COVID, where we just put too much demand. Not necessarily our fault, but we'll take it on the chin. You know, the government announced an initiative that's then managed by the local authority, hits us at the same time as the green bins, at the same time as the council tax letters go out, etc., etc. So we need to spread this out more during the year and get more digitised. And so the garden waste, you can do that online now, and there's direct debits up that automatically renew every year, so that you don't have to renew, it automatically renews for you, and that cuts down the number of calls significantly. It is something that is very, very high on the agenda of the administration to make sure that the customers get the best possible service when they dial into this authority.
I just want to expand on that a little bit. I'm sorry if I've been a little bit awkward. Obviously, we talk about analysis of previous stats and things like that. Do we not project anything forward of what we actually expect, and what does that exist? Because obviously, one of the other things here we've got talk about 12 apprentices are due to come in to help support. There's no mention of when those apprentices are due to come in, how long their training is, and when you expect them to be competent to be able to answer the calls fully. So we've got a view on that, or when that extra resource will be applied.
So my understanding is that it's already in the process of being recruited, and some are already in place. If not all the apprentices are already in place. The looking ahead to project the number of calls we're going to receive month on month, Caden, at the moment is really difficult, because we've got such an ever evolving economy and demands on service. We look to try and do it, but we don't know what we don't know. And you don't know what's going to happen in 3, 6. We're a local authority. We deal with so much. We're not just selling a single commodity, for example. So, and we're asked to do much, much more by the government, which we want to do because we're at the front line with our local community. The analysis does take place, but the other thing to bear in mind is we've had a fundamental change in the way that we do this over the last 2 years. A fundamental change. There's brand new IT systems, brand new telephony, is that the right word? I always get tongue tied with that. Brand new telephones, yeah, and the whole way we do it, because customers now as well, our local residents, when the system's fully functional and commissioned, will actually have more access to more officers of the authority as well, not just the gateway team. So it is work in progress. We are getting there, But because it is your area of expertise, and so I was expecting some questions on this. But the forward, we do look at forward analysis and trends, but perhaps that's something we'll speak to Asim and the team about, and we can report that back.
Outsiders, if I can assist in any way, then I'll be more than willing.
Encourage, Chair, if I may. Sorry, Chair. I'd encourage the cabinet member is Councillor Ian Watkinson, responsible for Gateway and IT, and I'd encourage you to meet with him one-on-one, because he's working heavily in this area. It's why we created that single portfolio, because it is that important to us within respect to the corporate priorities and the service our customers get.
Thank you for that. And I think we look forward to having Councillor Watkinson in front of us as a committee, I think, moving forward. Have we got any other questions from members? Councillor Howarth.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Just on the same item, because the second item, where percentage planning applications decided within 13 weeks, certainly the last planning committee I went to, where there was a proposal for a deferral made by Councillor Flannery, who I thought his reasoning for doing that was absolutely bob on, and all of his arguments for doing so were correct. I was then somewhat taken aback that within days the application was out of time. Now, it might help perhaps reduce some of these cases if the planning committee, when he proposed that, we had the interim director of planning sitting there at the time, but at no point was it said, well, you're at liberty to make that proposal, but you should be aware that this application will be out of time within a number of days. They were allowed to make the proposal. The proposal was approved. It was then deferred, and it's now gone to a planning inspector. So I think, we might be able to help ourselves in this if the new planning committee that's now come in were actually made aware of the implications of deferrals, of timescales, and what may well happen if it's not determined within a set time.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Howarth. And I think that there's a number of different strands to this. That there have been, particularly over the last 6 to 12 months, a number of highly contentious planning applications, and it's the view that we're here for our community. We're here. We are the voice of our community, and our community needs to be heard more with these planning applications as well. But the actual relevant point that you make there, David, though, is that the officers must be advising the committee that if a deferral is going to take the application outside its statutory determination date, the risk that the committee therefore has in it be going to appeal. Now, I've had a look, there's the planning committees on Thursday, and actually the dates for the statutory deadline dates for the determinations are on the paper. I've seen them there, so that the committee will know. And I know Councillor Flannery's spoken to me about this in detail over the last few months, and the Chair of Planning, Councillor Flannery, and I are meeting tomorrow afternoon to have a discussion.
Okay, thank you. Have we got any questions from members not on committee? I think we do. I'm not sure we have any members of the public, but have we got any questions from members of the public?
Excuse me, I've got a question.
Councillor Turner?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just go back to page 18, the discussion over abandoned calls? It doesn't say on there, and I think this is probably plausible state, because I've had, especially over the postal vote issue that we had just before the elections, which I know is subject to a separate inquiry, but a lot of residents contact us saying that they abandon their call to the council because they just give up because nobody answers the call. And I think that is something that's reported to us on a regular basis. And I think that is a reason why we are below target, but it's not referenced in the box. But I think that is a valid reason that we get a lot of residents saying they just give up.
Angela, I apologise, I've got my back to you and answering this. It's the way it's set up. If you look on page 23, the actual stats are there. So the percentage of calls to Gateway, the call centre answered within 90 seconds. The target's 40%. It was 54% in Q4, and then the percentage of calls abandoned. The target is 15%, but 24% were abandoned. Now, I completely accept the point that you're making, Angela, that where we have times of it, where something happens in the poll, when the postal votes weren't delivered, there are an extreme number of people all calling at the same time. But the stats that we have is that, and we have all the information, is that everybody that requested a replacement postal vote received one. And there was a number of additional officers placed on Gateway to support that when it happened. And again, there's the ongoing investigation that the returning officers doing into what happened there. What I can tell the committee, just because Councillor Turner's raised this, is that we know exactly how many postal votes were issued to the Royal Mail when they were collected from Leeds, the exact number, and it was exactly the right number of postal votes that were supposed to be issued. So we'll I know it's a separate issue, Chair, and there will be a separate report later in the year, but at times of exception, when exceptional issues do occur, we do our best to facilitate the support. But as I say, members may have abandoned calls, but clearly they've contacted us again, or they've then emailed us, and everybody was issued with a replacement postal vote.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Foster. Can we please formulate the recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. Just some of the themes from tonight that the committee might like to consider as recommendations. The committee thanks the leader and director for their report and answering questions. The committee welcomes the success of the Music in the Park event and looks forward to an evaluation of the return on investment and future plans being made available to members. The committee is grateful for the offer of further information and statistics with regards to the uptake of the cost of living support. The committee asks that the council work with the credit union to increase the opening hours of their office and to provide outreach to other parts of the borough. The committee asks for further information on the council's contribution to the credit union and how the council ensures value for money. The committee welcomes the offer of a response to the query raised on the criteria with the select move process, and the committee invites the new cabinet member for customer and digital to the next meeting to discuss customer service indicators, including the abandoned called rates. And finally, the new planning committee be advised of the implications of deferring applications and the risk of non-determination. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Darren. Do we agree with them? Thank you very much. Can I just thank Vicky and Councillor Foster for that presentation. We'll now move on to agenda item 4, which is the 22-23 corporate revenue budget and reserves provisional outturn as of 31st of March 23. I'd like to welcome Councillor Foster again, who is sitting in for Councillor Tomlinson, who's going to be supported by the Director of Finance, Louise Mattinson. Welcome to you. I'll ask the first question. The report shows a provisional underspend of 290,000, even when the higher than budgeted pay award and other overspends are taken into account. What would have happened if there have not been the underspends in other areas?
Thanks, Chair. Firstly, Councillor Tomlinson does send his personal apologies to the committee. This is an important meeting for him to attend. Unfortunately, with the election cycle and then the establishment of this new committee, it's meant is unavailable tonight. But he does send his apologies. What I'd say, Chair, is that I do think that it is a really strong position that the council finds itself in at the end of the year, given that we had, if you remember, a £450,000 additional pay award for our staff that was unfunded by government, although agreed by government. We had the additional £500,000 of utility costs for the leisure centres with the utility costs spiking when everything else was with the inflation, and we had to absorb that into our directorates and our budgets. But we still ultimately are reporting close to a 300,000 underspend. Now, yes, you'll see all through the report slight underspends here, slight overspends there. Predominantly, one of the benefits, if there is a benefit of the interest rates going up, is that our interest receivable on investments and the cash, because you remember, Chair, we have a lot of cash flowing within reserves and in the cash flows that we gain revenue from, has had a big uptake in dealing with the areas where we've had additional cost. So the answer would be it's the interest receivable that's had the biggest impact on this quarter, because if you remember previously we were generating, I think it was about a 90k overspend. So that's what's basically happened. And then money, you see slight underspends and slight overspends within the directorates.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Can I take the leader to page 28, section 15, please? Where it talks about the £3.4 million of UK Shared Prosperity Fund that's come from the government between 2022 and 2025. Could you explain, does this funding have any targets that the council is expected to achieve? And how will the funding allocated for future years be prioritised and spent in future years?
So thanks, Councillor Green. So clearly the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, UK SPF, was brought in by the government that replaced a lot of the EU funding that the communities used to receive. Clearly, this is only a fraction of what the government promised and a fraction of what the funding for the schemes that we used to get through from the EU, but we've got what we've got. There's a number of key, if you remember, the Council went through the detailed policy on this, went through Council a number of months ago, and there's key objectives that have to be met with the investments. The majority, a lot of them are capital investments. Very little of it is actually permissible to support the revenue budget. Louise, that's right, isn't it? And it is very complex, and it is a 3-year programme. We're already on with delivering it, as the update report says. It's welcome. Any investment into the community is welcome, but there's so much challenge for us in how we allocate those funds. And for example, there's the thing that the county council do that we do with the business, Lancashire tourism, and all the rest of the stuff that were previously funded through separate pots. Some of which I know you'll know yourself are being actually brought under county council control now, because they're just not necessarily viable moving forward, because the local authorities just don't have the availability within the UK SPF pot. So yeah, we can send to you again. What probably would be best, Chair, is if we could send to the committee again the original business plan for UK SPF, which has been approved by government, and it details out all the different schemes and the parameters and the KPIs that we need to look at.
Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to bring you to page 28, the bottom paragraph there, just to speak a bit about the agency staff and consultancy fees that we have. I'm sure we're all in agreement that we don't want to be overly reliant on this. Reference has been made here and in other places in the report to overspends being due to using agency staff and consultants. So do you know how much we are spending in total on agency staff and consultants?
Thanks, Councillor King. We will have that number. If it's not within the report, we can get that to you. The challenge we've had within the authority, and it's not just at this local authority, in local government up and down the country, is staff. We are desperately struggling to recruit staff, particularly the low levels of pay that they've had for a number of years. And so what we've had as well within our authority is that the shared service management team has been restructured, and we've had some interims in place. And those interims are what they're referring to in this position. But we'll get just so you're aware, Councillor King, as well, that there's a paper that went through council, you recall, about making these positions permanent, and we're actually recruiting the senior director positions, and all the heads of service are all going to be permanent members of staff. But what I would ask you to possibly bear in mind is, when you're looking at the interim staff costs, also then looking against in the underspends in the directorates on staffing, and the Councillor Tomlinson brings this to the committee every quarter where we're holding vacancies and we're trying to offset one and the other. But if it's not absolutely clear here, we can get those numbers to you.
Yeah, that would be really appreciated. And actually, just to kind of cover another point more on staffing vacancies in general, I agree that, paying conditions is part of it. But I think a huge part as well must go down to advertisements and acknowledgements that these jobs are available. I was having a bit of a dig before this meeting and seeing whether I could look at a job on LinkedIn, and nothing's there. There's no jobs available on there. And considering over 70% of people now use that to find a job, I was just wondering, could we revise whether we can look at that, and also on other social media sites as it's becoming a much bigger part of the pie?
Yeah, I know we do advertise on Facebook, on the council's social media sites with the vacancies, and it's just a shame that Vicky's just left because she's the HR director and should have been able to give you all the policy and the strategies that we adopt. But we'll look at LinkedIn, of course we will. We'll look at anything. We're open to advice, and this is what the purpose of the committee here is for today. And what I will say is that there was a significant change in the policy and how we recruited about 18 months ago, and we are filling vacancies much quicker than historically we have done as well. But the LinkedIn thing, we'll speak to Vicky about, and we'll look into that.
Just a final point on this. So what is being actively done to reach out to people that we believe are credible for the positions that we have vacancies for?
Well, we utilise consultants as well. So when we've got senior positions, for example, we use the systems that everyone else uses. I don't like using the word headhunters, but we're out there actively seeking to bring senior people in to come and work with the authority. So we just do what the private sector does as well, Will. And as I say, some of the roles, we've got some senior roles within South Ribble and Chorley if it's within the shared services, and we are having a significant uptake in the number of applications as well. The pay award has helped in the last 12 months, but also South Ribble Borough Council does have a good set of terms and conditions for its staff.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. Obviously, going on to page 29, still in the same paragraph 16, commercial services. There's a note in there that there's a 28k net reduction in income streams within commercial services. Obviously, some of this is due to like higher service charges and rental income. Obviously, the council's got a number of commercial property lets, and have we got a view of what percentage of those are occupied and which are out of lease? And also, we've got some fantastic facilities such as this banqueting suite. Have we got an action plan to sort of improve the sort of offer, improve our income streams, and actually market facilities such as the Civic Centre?
So Hayden, thank you. As you know, we do market it, the Civic. We've got Worden Hall coming on board as well. And what I can tell the committee is that we are undertaking, Councillor Bilinski's undertaking as we speak now, a detailed asset review. And if you remember, historically, we've got a multitude of assets, and we've got some that are in use, some that aren't, some that generate better income than others. And it has to be a more effective revenue stream for us, because particularly in this area of South Ribble, there are a huge amount of places to go to, as you know, when if you wanted a wedding or a business function. And also, please remember that we are undertaking a review of the commercial services within this building as well. For how are we using this building effectively? Do we still need all the industrial kitchen area out the back of there? And there were some plans about 3 years ago to remodel the building, but then COVID impacted and the world changed. And so we are undertaking a review into the commercial services of this building. We are actively, you'll recall from the last, we've got a strategy, a visitor economy strategy as well, where we're heavily marketing the facilities, but also we need to do further detailed rent reviews on all the properties that we own. So, and some of it hasn't been done for a number of years, and so it will be getting done this year.
Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. For a good number of years, we've seen the role of apprentices as being vital to both to this council in terms of catering for the business need, but also providing opportunities for people to get opportunities to further their careers, etc. I was therefore somewhat concerned when I read on page 31 that the apprentices budget hasn't been utilised. I'm just wondering what the reasons are for that budget not being utilised, please.
I'm not aware. I'm trying to find it. Which paragraph is that in, Councillor Green?
Yes, paragraph 21, the first paragraph of it on page 31. First bullet point, Councillor.
So I'm assuming that's a timing issue of the recruitment of as we just mentioned, we had the 12 apprentices that have just come in to Gateway. But as the committee will be aware, that we have completely revolutionised the way that we support apprentices and employ apprentices in this organisation. 3 or 4 years ago, we were down to a handful of apprentices, if that. We now have numerous in all the directorates. Remember, the council and the administration made a decision to up the pay and conditions for every apprentice, so that they don't have to go onto the national rates when they're 16 or 17. They go onto the full rates from day one. And so we have no problem whatsoever in recruiting the apprentices, and we're offering opportunities all around the administration. And there's actually some of them as well that are starting in one area, are then going closely working with other areas in the neighbourhoods team, for example, and we're actually being flexible with them as well. And if they make a choice to try and change their apprenticeship mid-term, we look at that as well. So the apprentices are so important in the future. Young people are brilliant and they want to work, and they want to work in an organisation like this. So that figure that you quote, I'm assuming is down to a timing issue, Councillor Green, but we certainly will look into that and get some more information back to you.
Yeah, just come back briefly, Mr. Chairman. That's pleasing to hear your response, because I think we both agree on the importance of this. So yeah, if you could check and get back to us and hope for that just this timing. Thank you.
Louise,
I was just going to add one. We have an apprentices budget, but we also have some success in the apprentices that we take on as other vacancies become available in the council. Some of the apprentices apply and are successful in getting them because they've had a good grounding and they've got the experience, and therefore that releases the apprenticeship budget to then be taken by another apprentice, but there's kind of certain intakes during the year, so that sometimes generates underspend.
Councillor Williams.
Yes, thank you. Just moving slightly back to page 29 of the section about communities. I know there's been an overspend of 498k on homelessness. Now, obviously, you would never need a budget for homelessness, but obviously it's a problem that's going to get worse. And obviously, looking at reviews reserves of 176k, we've got additional homeless prevention grant of 25k, which brings down an overspend to 297. And we've already talked about homelessness and where that's getting worse this year. It's getting worse as we go along. Are we at risk this year as this economic situation develops of that type of overspend again? And obviously, have we put adequate provision in this year's budget?
The answer is yes, and this comes down to a political decision that this council needs to make, because if this council wants to send away people that are homeless because the government won't fund it, so as you say, 498,000 overspend, but the government did give us 25,000, I suppose, towards that. You know, we can't, as an administration, we're caring people. You can't send homeless people away, packing away. What are they going to do? And so again, this is the paper that's coming to cabinet, and that's why we're doing it in 6-month tranches as well, because we need to keep a close eye what it is costing the authority. But we can't turn homeless people. We have a statutory duty to support these people, Hayden, and the families. And all we can keep doing is, I won't be too political, Chair, but either hope for a change of government that will put priorities and resource into this problem, which many would argue they created because of the cost of living crisis and the increase in inflation, and the fact that interest rates are going up so high. All of those factors are impacting on the homelessness, and we need to see more intervention from government so that we can help prevent it. But we cannot turn people away who show up as homeless.
I think it's last questions from yourself, Councillor Williams.
Page 31, paragraph 21, the first bullet point. Can you talk us through the reasons for the Worden Hall overspend of 79k, and is there any learning from this from other projects?
Apologies, Councillor Foster. I think it's actually the fourth bullet point.
Fourth bullet point. Yeah, sorry, fourth bullet point.
Apologies.
Yeah, 79 over K on Worden Hall due to contract issues and delays in opening. Yeah, page 31, section 21.
Hi, it's just purely in relation. We'd set a budget for the year to achieve a level of income, but because of the delay in opening, obviously we weren't able to generate that income within the timescale, and therefore that is what has led to the under recovery of income, or overspend as it's reported in there. But now opened and generating income for the new financial year. So that was just a consequence of the slippage in that.
Thank you. Have we got any other questions from members on the committee? Any questions from members not on committee? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your appointment. It's just, LinkedIn was mentioned earlier. I just had a quick scan. There were 10 job adverts on LinkedIn through posts. So I was wondering how successful they are. I know Vicky's not here, but I just wondered how successful they are in recruitment, and are they the best tool to use?
Thanks for that, Councillor Martin. The answer is, Chair, I don't know, but we'll find out, and Vicky will write a note.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from members not on committee? Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a simple question, really. How many vacancies do we actually have at the council at this time across all levels of management and staff?
Bear with me a second, Chair. I think it is in one of the appendices. I think it's Appendix 4. It's Lou. So if you go to Appendix 4, you'll see there's 2 pages, and it shows the number of vacancies, whether it's within shared services or whether it's within South Ribble Borough Council. And if there's any particular notes, is it just a vacancy that we're in the process of filling? Is it being delayed? Is it remaining vacant? And so the information's in that appendix. There's, as you'll see, the customer and digital, again, that's across the board, Chair, in local government, it's in that particular area. But I'd hope that the committee would agree we've recruited well, particularly over the last 12 months. Into these vacancies. It was something that Councillor Tomlinson was quite concerned about, and it's something that reports in every quarter to you.
Okay, thank you. I can't see any other questions from members online, and I don't think we do have any members of the public here. So could we please formulate the recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. Just some of the themes from tonight you might like to consider as recommendations. The committee thanks the Leader and Director for attending and answering questions. The committee welcomes the offer of a copy of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund business plan being provided to the committee. The committee asks that the total agency and contractor costs mapped against the Directorate staffing underspends be provided. The committee encourages the greater use of LinkedIn and other social media channels to attract and recruit employees to the council, and the committee requests the apprenticeship underspends be explored further. Thank you, Chair.
All members on the committee happy with those recommendations? Okay, thank you. We'll now move to agenda item 5, which is the 22-23 capital programme and balance sheet monitoring report as of the 31st of March 2023. And as I say, we've got Councillor Foster standing in for Councillor Tomlinson, supported by Louise Matson, the Director of Finance. Would you like to say an introduction, Councillor Foster?
Thanks, Chair. There's much information in here, and I think you may ask lots of questions about the slippage in the capital programme, and we can talk through that and explain that. But there's one I'd like to take you to page 53, because this is something that's quite close to my heart after the local elections, Chair. A note under paragraph 38, the current borrowing investment position of South Ribble Borough Council. So clearly it states there that as of the 31st of March 2023, the short-term borrowing was nil. The long-term borrowing was nil. And we actually had in the round about £35 million of cash in the bank, which is somewhat different to the statements that were made to residents that this council, Chair, was debt-ridden. So I'd be quite interested, Chair, if any members of the committee have any additional questions they risk to ask me about that. And just to put it into comparison, Chair, Lancashire County Council, for example, has about £1 billion worth of debt, I understand. And the recent cabinet meeting there voted to increase that debt provision by about £120 million. And so I think it's hypocritical, Chair, at times that it seems allowable for county councils, for example, to invest in their communities in projects, but it's not permissible to invest in our community in projects in South Ribble. And I just wonder at times what South Ribble's done wrong. But I just draw your attention, Chair, if I may, to paragraph 38, which is not Paul Foster's report. It is the facts supplied by the Chief Finance Officer. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for that. I'll ask the first question, please, which will take us back to page 48, paragraphs 8 and 9. So we've seen an increase in capital budget and reduction. Please, could you talk us through the reasoning for increasing the capital budget significantly and then reducing it?
Okay, so we started the financial year with a £29 million budget, but following the outturn report from 21-22, there were some schemes that had some slippage, and that was taken out of the 21-22 and brought forward into 22-23. That's what increased it from the 29 million that went to Finance Council to the £43 million in the outturn report. As the year has progressed, there has been further slippage in relation to the Jubilee Gardens extra care scheme, and also in relation to the leisure centre refurbishments and the decarb. The 31st of March is obviously our year end that we report on, and it's kind of a hard cut-off against which we report. But some of those schemes, actually, we did incur quite a bit of expenditure in April that had they been brought forward by a couple of weeks, we would have seen something slightly different in terms of the amount of slippage. For example, a lot of the decarbonisation works, a bit significant amounts were paid out in April. Similarly, Mackenzie Arms was something that we slipped money forward from the financial year 22-23 into 23-24, but again was dispersed early in the new financial year. And one of them is being the Leyland Town deal, where some of the acquisitions we try and estimate when we expect any of the expenditure to be incurred, but that's something out of our hands. It's taken longer to negotiate those deals, and therefore some of that has slipped as well on the town deal.
Thanks, Chair. I suppose what to try, the slippage in the capital programme is always, it happens every quarter, and it's frustrating. I share the frustrations, but what I would say to the committee is that given the fact that all the funding for our schemes is currently from reserves or free cash flow, Lou's not on our back every single day. We're not having to borrow this money. Because if we're having to borrow the money to fund the capital schemes, we're paying interest, but we're not. So because it's from free cash flow, because it's from reserves, it doesn't have a detrimental impact on the budget, if that makes sense to the committee. But as we move forward, we are doing everything we possibly can to realign the capital programme now to make sure that we're trying to hit these targets. But as Louise said, some of this is just could be the difference of a day when you pay an invoice, and if it's a significant invoice of millions, Chair, it has a big impact on the reporting.
Okay, thank you. Could the slippage outlined throughout the report have been predicted earlier?
I suppose the answer is yes and no, because we give an absolute honest view every time we review the capital programme is reviewed quarterly, Chair, for your report and for your analysis. But so as I say, some of it may have been literally a day or two, and it could have been significant millions of pounds, depending on when the invoice lands. But what we are working towards the three major schemes that's mentioned in there at the moment, which is the decarbonisation and refurbishments of the leisure centres, Jubilee Gardens, and the town deal. We're almost at the point now, within the next current quarter, maybe rolling into the late summer, early autumn, where we'll have fixed contracts in place. And then we've got fixed deliverable programs that backed off by detailed cash flow analysis that are detailed cash flows, Chair, that are contracted.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, following on from that, obviously we would talk about loans and the timing of things like that, the timing of various things. How much confidence can we have in the actual capital budgeting system, as it were, in the actual budgeting forecast? And is there anything we can actually learn from this slippage over the last couple of years? So obviously it has been going on for quite a while. What can we actually learn from that?
I'll let Louise in a second give her finance view on this. To be honest with you, Councillor Williams, there's been slippage in capital programmes across the board in all authorities since I first became involved in politics. It is quite challenging to get that timing absolutely right. When it comes to budgeting, though, I wouldn't want the committee to. Also, though some of the major schemes have been deeply impacted, should we say, by the cost of living crisis and the spike in inflation, a lot of the other schemes, so for example the parks that we've built at Bent Lane, all the current works that we're doing in Worden Park and other areas and in Penwortham and Bamber Bridge, we're actually seeing them come in under budget as well. So our budgeting is good. We're tight. We're not an easy touch when it comes to contractors. We're delivering the programme and the budgets. We always build in contingencies, Hayden, to the budgets as well. But what I don't like to see is particularly a major project commencing with a big contingency, because I think officers and contractors just see a big contingency as is there to spend. It's not. We should be in the position where we're professional enough and we're strong enough that when we agree a contract cost with a contractor, the contingency is reduced quite significantly, and then you're passing the risk, aren't you, to the contractor. So I think it's inevitable. When I was in opposition, Hayden, I used to whinge like hell in the governance committee about slippage in the capital programme, and I used to get a similar response back from the leader then that I never used to necessarily always accept. But it is something we do our damnedest to get right, but it's a dark art.
Thank you. Councillor Howarth.
Yeah, page 51, paragraph 25, disabled facilities grants. These delays are concerning, I think have been for quite some years, to be honest. What more can the council do to encourage Lancashire County Council to turn referrals around more quickly?
Thank you. I was just confirming something. Did you finish? Sorry, Councillor Howard. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, I was just checking on something. I do apologise, Chair. Yeah.
Did you get that? Right. Okay. Disabled facilities grants. These delays are concerning. So, what more can the council do to encourage Lancashire County Council to turn referrals around more quickly?
So, apologies again. I was just seeking some clarity with Louise there. So, it is a major concern, and it's not that we don't have the demand for the DFGs. The problem we have, and I don't like necessarily naming other authorities, but the initial assessment is done by Lancashire County Council, and there is a huge backlog in central Lancashire, and you'll be surprised to know we can send you the information. I've just written to the leader of Lancashire County Council about this, where we're having to bring our own assessment team in and fund it ourselves because the delay is just intolerable. Some areas of Lancashire have it takes between 4 and 8 weeks to get the initial referral done. So what happens, initial referral's done, it's then sent to us, signed off by the occupational health, sent to us, we do the work. In central Lancashire, so you're talking Preston, Chorley, South Ribble, that assessment can take upwards of 52 weeks plus. And we've asked the county council to address this. It hasn't been addressed. So as I say, only this week I've written to the leader of Lancashire County Council and have informed them that we're going to do it ourselves because there's just a huge demand that isn't being met. And I don't know why, because the referrals is, as I say, is managed by LCC. I don't know why they can't just deal with this hotspot in central Lancashire. As I say, you look at the stats don't lie, David. Other areas of the county have a much better service than we get. So the only way to drive down the underspends on the DFGs and get the service to the people that need it is to do that initial occupational health assessment ourselves, which is what we're going to do. And I think we've allocated about 25,000. Yeah, and it's coming from our capital budget to do that. And again, I can send a copy if you wish to see it of the letter to LCC for your records.
If I could just come back there. So how far does that 25,000 go? I.e., how many cases are we talking about for that to cover?
I can't remember the detail. I don't know if you can, Lou. I'd be guessing. I can't remember, David, the exact numbers, but I will send a copy of the letter to you and we'll send some additional information. But we've got to get on top of this. We want to bring the waiting times down to the levels that the rest of the Lancashire County has, not this. And this isn't something that's been short term. This has been 2-3 years that we've been experiencing this as well. But we'll get the information to you.
Well, I know it's been 2 or 3 years because I've asked it before. So,
can I just take you to page 52, paragraph 30? And looking at the leisure local, the report states that the capital budget of 310k has not been utilised. Why is this, and what are the plans for the future for this money?
So I think it could be an issue of timing. You'll all be aware as well that this is a snapshot in a quarter. There has, and you'll all be aware of it because a lot of the members of the committee have spoken to me about schemes around about allocating the funds to some of the schemes as well that we've previously allocated and delays, and we have to go through a due diligence process for public money as well, and we agree the set parameters that have to be covered off and signed off with these schemes. That's one reason. The remainder of them could have been reprofiled. Luke, I'm looking for some help here.
Yeah. So it's just as plans come forward, then they will be considered, and the budget is already there available. It hasn't been fully utilised, and so again we've carried it forward. So once the plans come forward, that we will be able to utilise it. That will be the call against this pot.
Okay. So do we know if those applications are still yet to be processed in terms of that, or are we still awaiting applications for that budget?
Yeah, the chair was still awaiting. So the backlog that we had, if you remember, we also had the leisure grants for the local teams, everything else additional to this that we're working through. So what's happened, if there's been any underspend, is just move forward into this year's budget. We don't whack it back into reserves. We keep it there. There's a huge demand on our leisure local services, and the team that deliver that. You'll have seen it yourself with all the schools and all the different initiatives that we do. I was at Fox Lane a couple of weeks ago with 100 kids under 12 all bowling, and it's I can't say it went that well, by the way, because there wasn't much the jacks being hit, but there's lots of the balls going in the bit aimed at me, but never mind. But we have all sorts of initiatives, Chair, and again the team are maxed out consistently, and again I think it's actually there may be an underspend there, but it's something certainly that we'll look to get on top of this year.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Peat.
Thank you, Chair. Page 52, paragraph 34, it's with regards to vehicle and plant replacement. There's reference made to a review. So what will this look like, and will the review look at environmental implications as well as cost? Thank you.
Yeah, there is a review being undertaken, and I'm expecting a paper coming through very shortly on a request to utilise part of the replacement programme budget there. And again, all of that we'll consider within the report, looking at the environmental aspects of that.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Councillor Foster, I've been contacted by the local residents with regard to the grant capital expenditure for Lostercall Academy. She's referenced on pages 52 and 64 of this evening's agenda. South Ribble Borough Council has provided £300,000 of public funds to develop these facilities, and the local residents are asking Scrutiny to look into some of this. So just as a starter, though, to actually looking into this, who took the decision to award initially the £200,000 grant and a £100,000 loan to Lostercall Academy, and then to subsequently amend this to a £300,000 grant? Do you want me to read the other questions as well, or do you want to answer that one first? Do you want me to go through all of them?
Continue.
Yeah, okay. So that's the first question. Secondly, was all necessary due diligence properly carried out before the above decisions were made? And finally, what have you done as the council leader, and what are you doing now to ensure that the significant concerns raised by residents are fully addressed? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Green. So you'd be glad to know that we're all over this, as you'd expect us to be, and it's an ongoing issue that the 3 Lostercall councillors have been working and continue to work very closely with the local residents on just this one particular area next door to the academy. So in direct answer to your question, the grant was awarded by council. You'll have voted on it. It went to council and the funds were awarded by council. Was the correct due diligence done? Absolutely it was. It's one of the reasons that there was a slight delay in getting the funds to Lostercall Academy, was because the amount of due diligence that was taking place to ensure it was right and proper, as you'd expect us to do. They have the funding now, by the way, and what I would urge all members of the committee to do is go up and see what a wonderful sporting facility it is there for the children. It's absolutely superb and fits properly right in the middle of our health and wellbeing agenda for getting our young children fit and healthy and out using the facilities properly. And what have I done? Well, where could I start? I've met the local residents, Councillor Green, personally in the houses. I deal with emails from the local residents on a weekly basis. The Chief Executive and I are in direct dialogue with local residents, and we're also in direct dialogue with the Principal and the Chief Finance Officer of the Academy. So just to clear up so the committee understands, there is a concern that the local residents have, a couple of concerns about the facilities, about the floodlights, because they've installed new floodlights. Now remember, all this facility up at Lostercall is under an old planning application and planning permission for the rights. They've got permitted development rights as a school to use their facilities. And it's so they're currently, the planning enforcement team are looking at the lights. If the lights aren't adequate, if there is some glare into properties, then that will be subject to enforcement, and there will be a requirement possibly for another planning application, which the planning committee will look at. There's then a discussion with the school and the local residents about the use of the facility out of hours. As we all know, many facilities are used out of hours, school facilities are used out of hours by the community. And so what has to be borne in mind is, what is the existing permission for the academy, for the school, that they have in place for the use of those facilities, and how is that impacting on, firstly, are they using the facility in line with the original consent, which is a number of years old, and if they're not, then again, is there a requirement for a new planning application, where our environmental health team will look at this in detail with the residents and listen to what's been said. So this is something that's been going on for a number of months now, and we are working closely with the residents and the school to resolve it.
Yeah, thanks for the helpful response. So when did you last meet with the residents, please?
I had an email yesterday, I think, or the day before.
No, my question was, when did you last meet with the residents?
I last met with the Residents' Council Green when I was last to meet with the residents, which I think was in April.
Okay, thank you. And would you be agreeable to have a further meeting with them if that would help to take this issue forward?
I would, but what I would also say, because it's in Lostock Hall, so which I don't think is your ward, Councillor Green, is it? No. So, so I'm interested why you're representing Lostock Hall, but that's obviously the remit of the committee. Is what I can tell you is the Lostock Hall councillors, Councillor Stringfellow and Gabbett and co met with the residents, I think, last week, and there's Councillor Leslie Pritchard as well, because Councillor Stringfellow can't necessarily discuss issues with the school anymore because she's the vice chair of the planning committee.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Just to clear up, there was an email directly from residents to myself as chair and to Councillor Green as vice chair, which is why Councillor Green has brought that up, just for clarity. Okay. Thank you for your response. Have we got any more questions from members on the committee? Have we got any questions from members not on committee? I think anyone on Teams is... Oh, it's Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just going back to page, well, it's a question for Louise, really, page 52. There's quite a number of references there about delays in expenditure of the capital budget, further slippages of several schemes with financial amounts annotated against each project. Do we have a risk in the risk database for the for that slippage? Because my view would be that if these monies is allocated and it's a fixed budget, then as the schemes slip, there's potential for increased costs. Thank you.
Councillor Foster.
Yeah, thanks. Because it's actually a lot of the slippage is actually because the budget gets challenged right at the beginning, and so therefore, if the scheme's exceeding the budget, there's going to be some slippage whilst we get the scheme back within budget, if that makes sense, Chair. So the capital programme is the sheets and sheets of the capital programme that we work through, and so it's either the reason is either a deliberate decision to delay a project if it's a strategic region like the major ones, or although we may actually delay a project because it doesn't meet the budget constraints or the budget allocated, and actually we couldn't move ahead without actually coming back to council, because it's council that approves the annual capital programme. So and everything's looked at, Angela, in the round, and slippage isn't something we want to just necessarily allow, but it's always the best estimate of where we think we're going to be delivering the capital programme at any point in time.
Councillor Turner.
Yeah, sorry. I feel you've not answered my question, so apologies. What I'm talking about is if you have allocated funding that goes from one year to the next, is there not a risk of financial cost creep? Because there's a delay in the spending of the money, and we know that there is inflation now, and the cost of living and materials and labour are going up all the time. Thanks.
Yes, yes, there is. That is a risk associated with some of the slippage. If from taking it from one year to the next, or even within the same year, if we'd anticipated spending it in April and it's only delivered in December, January, it wouldn't necessarily show up in this report because we look at it over an annual basis. But as we've seen since kind of February 2022, the whole escalation of inflation over that period has been significant. But I suppose equally to offset that, if schemes are given an indicative budget at the beginning, then costings are worked up with contractors, etc. And sometimes, as Councillor Foster said, we would delay them until we'd pinned down and got a realistic price for the job. Sometimes it may be less than the budget that we'd indicated. So there are also savings to be made from not rushing into immediately awarding contracts. But absolutely, you are correct that the longer things go on in these times of increasing inflation, then yes, there is a risk to that the scheme budget will be insufficient.
Okay, thank you very much for that. As I say, we haven't got any members of the public in the meeting or online. Can we please formulate the recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. Just some of the themes from the discussion tonight. The committee thanks the leader and cabinet member for attending and answering questions. The committee requests that a further focus be given to reducing the level of slippage in the capital programme. The committee expresses concern at the delays with the county council turning disabled facility grant referrals around, and the committee wishes the leader well in his lobbying of the county council and in making alternative arrangements. Thank you, Chair.
Do we agree with those recommendations of the committee? Thank you. So we will move on to agenda item 6, meetings and training attended by members, which I think might be fairly difficult as we've only just been elected. So I don't think we've got anything there. The Cabinet Forward Plan, members are asked to flag anything on the Cabinet Forward Plan that they might be interested in looking at. I know we've had the discussion in relation to our digital services. I think that's going to be something that we're going to scrutinise a lot more moving forward. But as ever, please inform us if there is something which wants to be that members want to look at. And arrangements for the committee training and workshop. Darren, could you just inform us of when that is, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just to flag up, the North West Employers Strategic Scrutiny Network is next Monday, and that's always a good meeting to meet with other scrutiny members from across the North West and to see what practice is happening elsewhere. We also have the Scrutiny Committee training with Dr. Steph Snape on the 3rd of July, and we're currently proposing a workshop to plan your agenda for the remainder of the year and beyond on the 11th of July. So we'll be emailing more information out on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Darren. That brings this meeting to a close. I would like to thank you all. That was a fairly size and heavy agenda, so I appreciate everyone's input, and I look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. Thank you very much.